Across the medieval world, food was more than sustenance. It was survival, identity, and quiet innovation. Beneath the grandeur of royal feasts and monastery gardens lay a hidden roster of vegetables that shaped the diets of ordinary people. Many of these crops once held esteemed positions in kitchens, infirmaries, and marketplace stalls, valued not only for their flavor, but for their reliability in harsh seasons, their ability to nourish, and their resistance to poor soils. Over centuries, however, powerful interests in agriculture, shifting tastes, and the arrival of uniform commercial crops pushed these once beloved plants into obscurity. What modern farming dismissed as weeds, medieval families celebrated as staples. This episode returns to the forgotten greens and roots that carried households through famine, cold winters, and unpredictable harvests. Each one thrived where others failed. Each one protected health in ways that medieval people recognized intuitively. And each one remains a reminder of the extraordinary variety that once defined Europe's foodscape, long before monocultures and standardized produce took hold. Travel through kitchens warmed by hearths, through cottage gardens crowded with resilient perennials, through market stalls where humble roots sat beside rare delicacies. These vegetables did more than fill bowls. They anchored entire communities. Their stories stretch across farms, monasteries, and fields shaped by generations of observation rather than modern machinery. Some were local treasures. Others spread through trade routes and conquests, leaving footprints across medieval Europe. Today, they survive quietly at the fringes, growing along fences, reclaiming forgotten corners of land, persisting in the wild just as they did centuries ago. Their flavors remain vibrant, their nutritional power unchanged. What time and industry attempted to erase endures in the soil, waiting for rediscovery. These 10 forgotten vegetables reveal the ingenuity of medieval households and challenge us to reconsider what truly belongs on our tables. Purslane threaded its way through medieval fields, pathways, and cottage gardens with a persistence that farmers both respected and relied upon. While later centuries cast it aside as an unwanted weed, medieval households recognized its resilience as a blessing. This low-growing green thrived in poor soils, dry summers, and crowded garden beds, making it an unfailing source of nourishment when other crops withered. For families who lived closely with the land's rhythms, purslane was a dependable ally. Its leaves delivered a refreshing, slightly tangy bite, perfect for salads or added to pottages simmering over the hearth. Medieval cooks often paired it with onions or barley to build filling meals during lean seasons. Herbal manuscripts praised purslane for cooling the body after long days of labor, and physicians valued it for easing inflammation, fevers, and stomach discomfort. In an age where physical strain was unavoidable, a plant that soothed the body held a rightful place in daily life. What made purslane remarkable was its nutritional strength, something medieval people recognized through experience even without modern science. Its natural richness in oils and minerals made meals more satisfying, sustaining workers through demanding tasks. Travelers appreciated how long fresh purslane lasted without wilting, making it a reliable companion on journeys. Its endurance sometimes irritated wealthier landowners, who preferred orderly gardens and uniform crops. Yet commoners saw its vigor differently. Purslane required no replanting, no careful tending, and no protection from frost. It returned each year as if determined to lend its strength to the family that harvested it. Over time, the rise of manicured agriculture overshadowed these wild gifts. But purslane's medieval legacy lives on in the knowledge that some of the most powerful foods are the ones that demand the least from the soil and offer the most to those who gather them. Salsify held a special place in medieval kitchens, a root that delivered flavor and nourishment long after other vegetables had disappeared from storage. Its slender form, rough exterior, and pale flesh gave little away at first glance. But medieval cooks knew the secret it carried. Once simmered or roasted, this humble root released a flavor reminiscent of the sea. Many referred to it as The oyster plant, a comparison that fascinated diners from manor halls to modest cottages. It grew slowly. An entire growing cycle could stretch nearly a year, but its reliability made the wait worthwhile. In an age defined by long winters and unpredictable harvests, a crop that endured frost and neglect was invaluable. Families often planted salsify in corners of the garden where soil was heavy and other crops faltered. Even when left half forgotten, the root continued to mature quietly beneath the earth. Nutritionally, medieval people valued salsify for its ability to settle the stomach and strengthen the body during the cold months. It provided bulk in stews, added depth to broths, and paired well with fish and game. Healers praised it for easing digestive troubles and restoring appetite after illness, a reputation earned through centuries of observation. Its real significance lay in its dependability. When storage cellars ran low and fields slept under snow, salsify remained accessible. Families could dig through frozen soil to unearth roots that retained their flavor and nourishment. It was a winter guardian, bridging the gap between autumn harvests and spring's first greens. As agriculture industrialized, slow-growing crops like salsify lost favor. But in the medieval world, patience was a currency of survival, and salsify rewarded it generously. Its story reflects a time when flavor, resilience, and practicality shaped the food that sustained households through hardship. Lovage towered over many medieval gardens, its tall stalks and bold leaves signaling its importance both in the kitchen and in local medicine. Monasteries, in particular, cultivated it with care, recognizing its versatility and value throughout the year. This perennial grew with vigor, demanding little attention, yet delivering generous harvests of leaves, seeds, and roots that brought depth to meals and relief to ailments. In medieval cooking, lovage functioned as a powerful flavoring herb. Its taste, sharper and more robust than celery, elevated broths, pottages, and roast dishes. Families added it to stretch meals, transforming simple ingredients like barley or lentils into aromatic dishes that warmed both stomach and spirit on long winter nights. For households often limited in spices due to cost or scarcity, lovage filled a crucial role, offering boldness without luxury. Healers valued every part of the plant. Leaves steeped into teas soothed digestion after heavy meals. Roots were dried and ground into powders used for joint discomfort and swelling. Seeds flavored tonics believed to strengthen the body during illness. Medieval herbals often listed lovage among the essential garden plants that every home should keep close at hand. Its perennial nature made it especially precious. While annual crops required careful planning, lovage returned each spring, providing steady harvests for years. This trait offered security to families who needed reliable foods and medicines in uncertain times. Over the centuries, as farming shifted toward uniform crops, lovage's commanding height and strong flavor fell out of step with commercial interests. But in the medieval world, where every plant needed to justify its place in limited garden space, lovage stood tall, literally and figuratively. It served as a vivid reminder that strength in the garden often came from hardy, long-lived plants that asked for little and gave abundantly. Skirret earned a quiet reverence in medieval kitchens for its natural sweetness, a rare treat in an age when sugar remained costly and scarce. Its pale, branching roots offered a gentle flavor that deepened when roasted, turning even simple dishes into comforting meals during the dark months of winter. Nobles valued it enough to include it in feasts, while commoners treasured it as a dependable crop that thrived where others failed. Growing skirret required patience and care. Its long, slender roots grew best in cool climates with plenty of moisture, conditions that suited northern Europe well. Gardeners admired its resilience. Even in shallow soils or harsh winters, the plant endured, returning year after year when left undisturbed. Medieval guides often recommended it as a reliable winter vegetable, ideal for sustaining families through shortages. Its sweetness came from inulin, a natural fiber that medieval cooks did not understand scientifically, but appreciated through experience. Stews gained depth. Roasted roots tasted rich and satisfying. Fried fritters made from skirret appeared in both noble halls and village festivals, proving its appeal crossed social divides. Medicinally, it played a subtle but valued role. Healers believed it supported digestion and soothed discomfort after heavy meals. Its gentle nature made it suitable for children and the elderly, who often struggled with stronger, more fibrous roots. Skirret's decline began when large-scale agriculture prioritized crops that grew quickly and stored easily. Its branching roots complicated mechanical harvesting, making it unappealing to future farming systems. Yet in the medieval era, where hand-tending was the norm, its quirks were accepted as part of its charm. Its story speaks to a time when flavor and endurance mattered more than uniformity, when a plant that brightened winter meals held a place of honor in even the humblest gardens. Good King Henry, often called the poor man's asparagus, flourished in medieval cottage gardens with a loyalty that made it a household favorite. This hardy perennial didn't ask for rich soil or constant care. It returned each spring, delivering tender shoots and nourishing leaves that sustained families after long winters. For commoners who depended on dependable greens, Good King Henry was a symbol of resilience. Its shoots, harvested in early spring, carried a mild flavor reminiscent of asparagus. Families boiled, sautéed, or baked them into pies long before other vegetables emerged. As the season advanced, the plant produced broad leaves rich in iron and other nutrients, offering a valuable source of strength during the busiest months of agricultural work. Medieval healers used the plant in poultices for irritated skin and minor wounds. Experience taught them that its crushed leaves offered gentle relief, a practical skill passed from one generation to the next. While modern science identifies antioxidants and minerals within the plant, medieval people understood its value through daily use. Good King Henry's greatest virtue was its independence. Once planted, it could thrive for decades. For households often stretched thin by work, weather, and unpredictable harvests, a vegetable that demanded so little yet offered so much became essential. It fit naturally into the rhythm of medieval agriculture, where perennial crops reduced the burden of seed saving and replanting. As industrial farming rose, this plant's slower growth and irregular appearances clashed with commercial expectations. Uniform crops replaced diverse gardens, and Good King Henry slipped quietly into obscurity. Yet its legacy in medieval life endures. It fed working families, fortified laborers, and brightened early spring meals when fields remained bare. It stands as a reminder of how deeply medieval people valued the quiet power of plants that grew alongside them year after year. The groundnut played a crucial role in the diets of medieval people living in regions where it naturally spread, especially in areas that maintained older agricultural practices influenced by earlier Roman and indigenous traditions. Although better known in later colonial contexts, the plant's historical presence in Europe appears in localized accounts, revealing a crop that provided remarkable nourishment in demanding environments. Its climbing vines anchored themselves to hedges, fences, and forest edges, producing tubers that offered more protein than many common roots. This made the groundnut invaluable to households that relied heavily on physical labor. A single plant could yield multiple tubers along its root system, turning small patches of land into reliable food stores. Families cooked the tubers in stews, roasted them near the hearth, or dried them for later use. Their dense texture and nutty flavor made them filling, suitable for long workdays during harvest or winter chores. In regions where soil fertility fluctuated, the groundnut's ability to fix nitrogen brought added benefits. Medieval farmers may not have understood the scientific process, but they recognized patterns. Land planted with groundnuts grew healthier crops the following year. The plant's durability made it particularly valued during lean times. When crops failed or storms damaged fields, families turned to hedgerows and woodland borders to gather groundnuts that required no cultivation. This connection between wild growth and food security aligned with medieval practices that blended farming with foraging. Its decline in later centuries stemmed from changes in land management. Hedgerows were removed, forests cleared, and uniform fields expanded. Plants that once thrived in diverse landscapes lost their place in the newly ordered world. In the medieval era, however, the groundnut stood as a dependable ally, quiet, sturdy, and generous, nourishing communities that respected the land's natural offerings. Sorrel held a familiar place in medieval kitchens, its sharp, lemon-like flavor brightening meals throughout the year. Unlike many greens that wilted with the first frost, sorrel endured cold weather, providing fresh leaves even in the depths of winter. For families with limited access to citrus or imported spices, its acidity brought life to stews, pottages, and fish dishes. Its presence in meals symbolized a connection to the land that persisted even when other crops slept beneath snow. Medieval cooks favored sorrel for its versatility. The tender youngest leaves were eaten raw in salads or combined with cheese and coarse bread for quick meals. Larger leaves were simmered to create hearty sauces or blended into soups that warmed the body. Its flavor cut through rich meats and added brightness to otherwise plain grains, proving that even modest crops could elevate everyday dishes. Healers recognized sorrel's properties early on. Herbal manuscripts described it as cooling, refreshing, and beneficial for those suffering from heat or dryness. Preparations made from sorrel leaves were used to ease discomfort in the throat or digestive tract. Its reliability made it a valued garden plant, especially for families whose work exposed them to long days outdoors. Its hardiness contributed to its popularity. Sorrel grew with little encouragement, spreading steadily and returning each year without need for reseeding. Medieval children were often tasked with collecting leaves from the garden edge or from wild patches along riverbanks. The plant's gradual disappearance from mainstream agriculture came with the rise of standardized greens and imported produce. But in the medieval period, sorrel embodied the spirit of the cottage garden, unpretentious, resilient, and flavorful, offering a welcome reminder that nourishment could be found even in the coldest months. Cardoon stood proudly in medieval Mediterranean gardens, a towering plant with spined leaves and thick stalks that demanded attention. Closely related to the artichoke, cardoon offered a similar richness, but with a sturdier, earthier flavor that appealed to cooks across the region. Its striking height and bold silhouette often made it one of the most recognizable plants in kitchen plots and monastery gardens. Preparing cardoon required patience. Gardeners blanched the stalks by tying them together and covering them to soften their texture and mellow their bitterness. Once ready, the stalks were boiled, stewed, or roasted, producing a tender dish admired during feasts and holy days. For households living near the coast or in territories influenced by Roman culinary traditions, cardoon represented both familiarity and refinement. Beyond its culinary value, medieval healers prized cardoon for its benefits to digestion and general vitality. Infusions made from its leaves were believed to support liver health, especially important in diets heavy with bread, wine, and preserved meats. Physicians often recommended it for those weakened by seasonal illnesses, recognizing its nourishing properties through lived experience. Cardoon's resilience added to its reputation. It thrived in poor soils, tolerated drought, and endured the heat of Mediterranean summers. Families valued its ability to produce substantial stalks even in challenging conditions, making it a dependable crop in regions with limited rainfall. As agriculture shifted toward faster-growing, more easily processed vegetables, cardoon's size and preparation demands caused it to fall from favor. But during the medieval centuries, it stood as a symbol of abundance, an ingredient that bridged everyday meals with culinary tradition stretching back to antiquity. Azor reveals how medieval food culture balanced practicality with pleasure, turning even formidable plants into sources of nourishment and celebration. Alexanders flourished in medieval Europe, especially in regions shaped by earlier Roman influence. This tall, aromatic plant offered a peppery, celery-like flavor that made it a reliable seasoning and vegetable for both commoners and travelers. Monasteries grew it widely, recognizing its usefulness across seasons and its ability to survive the cooler climate of northern Europe. Every part of the plant served a purpose. Leaves seasoned broths, pottages, and fish dishes. Stalks were boiled or steamed as a tender spring vegetable. Roots were cooked into warming meals that restored strength after long days of work. Seeds were used as a spice, especially when imported seasonings became scarce or expensive. Its versatility ensured that even when other crops struggled, Alexanders found a place in the household diet. Physicians valued the plant for its effect on digestion and general health. Tonic drinks and infusions made from its leaves or seeds were taken for discomfort or to support those weakened by illness. Medieval herbals frequently included Alexanders among recommended garden plants, noting its usefulness during colder months when fresh produce was scarce. The plant's ability to thrive in marginal soils, roadsides, rocky plots, and abandoned corners, added to its appeal. It asked for little, but delivered abundantly, aligning perfectly with the needs of households that balanced farming, foraging, and livestock care. As agriculture industrialized, Alexander's irregular growth and robust flavor made it less suitable for commercial production. Still, its presence lingers in wild patches near old monasteries, coastal paths, and forgotten fields. In medieval times, Alexanders represented resilience and adaptability. It bridged the culinary traditions of ancient Rome with the everyday needs of medieval families, proving that powerful flavors often come from the most unassuming plants. Sea kale clung to the harsh coastlines of medieval Europe, thriving in windswept dunes and salty soils where few other vegetables dared to grow. Its deep roots anchored into shifting sands, drawing strength from a landscape that tested both plant and person. For coastal communities, sea kale was more than a vegetable. It was a lifeline during seasons when storms disrupted fishing and fields inland yielded little. Medieval cooks prized its tender shoots, which carried a flavor reminiscent of asparagus with a faint briny note from the sea. Families blanched them beneath mounds of sand or straw to soften their texture, a technique passed down through generations in maritime villages. The plant's leaves, thick and mineral-rich, were cooked into hearty dishes that fortified households through cold months. Seafarers valued sea kale for its ability to resist spoilage. Its leaves retained nutrients and moisture longer than many inland greens, making it a trusted companion on long voyages. Its richness in vitamin C protected sailors against illnesses that threatened maritime life, long before such connections were scientifically explained. Culturally, sea kale held a place in local tradition. It grew where people built their lives against constant coastal challenges, floods, salt spray, and unpredictable weather. Its resilience mirrored the character of the communities that harvested it. As agriculture expanded inland and transport networks improved, reliance on coastal vegetables diminished. Sea kale, demanding manual harvesting and difficult to cultivate on large scales, gradually lost its place in markets. Yet along forgotten beaches and ancient paths, it still appears each spring, echoing the diets of medieval fishermen and their families. Its story reveals the interplay between landscape and sustenance, a reminder that medieval foodways adapted resourcefully to whatever environment people called home.